Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from November 17th, 2023, and I'm recording this on May 15th, 2024. As always, we give those dates so you know when this information is actually relevant, because the market is always moving and changing, as we will see when we look back at the prices of these books 6 months ago versus where they're at now. And as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. I know I get repetitive with the same intro all the time, but I think it's relevant to set the stage for what we're doing. As always, what is the goal of this? Is we're trying to see what the books people were chasing 6 months ago were, why were we chasing them, what were the factors affecting them, making them go for big value, making a lot of people buy them, and how have they done in the market since? Would you have been better off being patient? Was it worth it buying in back then? For the most part, if you've been following this list now for over 5 years, that you're better off to be patient. But let's see about the individual books this week. First up, we got Alien Legion #1 from 1984, and this hit the list because it was being adapted by Warner Brothers. Not sure if this was going to be a show or a movie. I didn't actually write that down, but back then raw copies were going for 5 to 20, a 9.8 hit 150. So yeah, it was, people were chasing this book in the moment. Now it's a $2 to $12 book raw. Only one 9.8 sale, but it did go for more at 175, but it's really hard to judge on that. So we'll stick to the raw side, and it's definitely been a down, and I'll be back on the raw side. Not quite the full-on trap that I thought it would be, but it's definitely, because most of the sales are still around $10, but definitely been worth being patient and coming back for this one if you were interested. Next, we have Sandman, #25, from the first appearance of the Dead Boy Detectives, and this show just came out a couple of weeks ago. When I hit the list, we were getting a trailer, that's why I hit the list 6 months ago, and the show just came out like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, maybe. So yeah, Dead Boy Detectives, I think got really good reviews. I have not went and watched that show yet. $20 back then, 9.6 going for 100. Now it's a $10 to $40 book with the show coming out right now, 9.6, 70 to 100. So we're going to call it steady and worth it. Most of the sales are kind of in the $20 to $30 range. So basically the average price back then, maybe you could have made a little bit. There's only a couple sales like 30 to 40 that would have made it like up, I think, in my categories. But yeah, just slightly up maybe on this. So you definitely did okay, but the show did just literally come out. I would guess if you were trying to sell and make a profit, you better do it quick or you're going to miss your window there. All right, with that, we're going to move into our covers, and only 2 covers this week. Only had 13 books this week, so it was going to be a little bit of a light week. Had a lot of overlap between the 2 lists. You will see why when we get to the end. Next, we have our cover is Black Panther #6. This Dolly 1 in 25 was hitting the list. Raw copies were going for $60 to $100, which is really, really good for 1 in 100 or 1 in 25. As you're looking at basically triple to quadruple ratio for the most part. But yeah, this one has turned into a dumpster fire. Now all the listings, if you go look at the listings, are all like 40 plus right now, but they're not selling. There's only been 2 recent sales in the last few months. Both of them were auctions. One went for $8. One went for $16. Yeah, nobody's interested in paying 40 plus for this. It is definitely a dumpster fire. It's a cool cover. It's a cool Black Panther cover, but it is not sustained anywhere near the value it was going for back then. Next, we have Fantastic Four #13. Another Art Adams 1 in 25 hitting the list. Back then, this one was going 25 to 50, so ratio to double ratio, which usually means that it ends up under ratio. This one is basically sitting at ratio here. It's 20 to 40. Most of the sales are like 20 to 30, with just a few sales in that 30 to 40 range, but we'll call it steady. I'll be back because there's enough sales 30 to 40 that are above $25 that, yeah, we'll say steady, but you still would have probably been better off coming back a little bit later. So performed better than your typical 1 in 25 that jumps to these values, which has been kind of the case with a lot of these Art Adams, but it's been so many of them that have hit the list over the last year. It's just crazy, the Art Adams love that's going on. All right, with that, we got one DC movie book. We have The Authority #1. We got casting updates. First engineer, I don't know anything about The Authority, was cast supposedly. Raw copies were going for 30 to 55, 9.8 going for 2 to 300. Now it's a $20 to $50 book, 9.8, 250. So we're going to call this another steady and worth it. Maybe a slight step back on the raw side, but yeah, a lot of people are still anticipating these Authority figures. We've been getting pretty steady news about the Superman movie, if not about these particular characters. We know they're going to be in that movie. We know they're getting their own project after. So yeah, this has continued to kind of chug along right in the same range of where it has been. Next, we have Young Avengers #1 as we move into MCU stuff. First appearance of Kate Bishop and others. Basically, there was talk about her coming back for some projects. So far, that hasn't really happened. Oh, never mind. This was right after the Marvels came out. Post-credit scene. That was why we had the Kate Bishop thing here. Sorry, I'd forgotten about that. Raw copies were going for 100 back then. 9.8, 288. If you followed this book for the last several years, you know both of those were down overall from some of the previous heights. Now it's a $40 to $70 book. 9.8, 2 to 275. So 9.8s haven't taken just a very slight step back from what they were. Raw copies continue to come well back from where they were at once upon a time. Overall, down, and I'll be back still on this book. Feel like getting into the range of, if you've waited this long, now might be getting to be a good time to start thinking about Kate Bishop. If you really want this book and you've just tried to be patient, I don't know what the floor is. It may come down a little bit more than this, but I can't imagine it's going to come down too much more than this. Next, we have Uncanny XMen #164, first appearance of Binary, of Carol as Binary. And obviously, another Marvel's post-credit thing going on here. Raw copies back then were going for 30 to 80. 9.8 of the direct edition was going for 250. Now it's a $10 to $40 book. 9.8, 135 to 175. So that's a trap. This one is backed up significantly from what it was going with the movie release, and the little reveal we got in the post credits. Book I like, book a character I enjoy. Luckily, I've had this one for a long time, so really wasn't affected by any of this. So next we have Prelude to Deadpool Corps #3, first appearance of Dogpool. Basically, when we talked about it last week, it was like a $20, $30 book. Now they were saying $10 to $30 book. So basically in the same range, just a ton of sales going on for its second week. And now it's still a $10 to $30 book. 9.8 recently went for 300, but again, one sale on that. So hard to really judge too much there. But yeah, raw copies are basically right in the same range. We know Dogpool was in the trailer. We know the movie is coming pretty quickly. So this one's currently setting as steady and worth it. We'll see what it does after. Typically would be now is probably the time to get out of it. Not that you're going to make a lot necessarily if you were bought it to flip. If not, I would be waiting to buy it till well after the movie comes out. All right, with that, we have the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books on the list. We're all on both lists. We had previously the Authority and the Alien Legion book was on both lists. All 5 of these were because we got a trailer back then that week, and despite it was so bad, it was good that people liked it, and that's sort of how the movie went. I don't know if it was so bad it was good, but it was so bad. And that was the trailer for Madam Web. First of our Madam Web books that hit the list back then, Amazing Spider-Man #30 from 2001, first appearance of Ezekiel Sims, and also Morlun. I think they kind of combined the two characters in the movie. I don't know, I haven't seen it yet, but that was the impression I got. Back then, raw copies were going for 30 to 45, 9.8, 130 to 160. Now it's a $15 to $25 book, 9.8, 75 to 125. So yeah, that's a trap, borderline dumpster fire on that particular book. As it is backed up significantly for our villain from the Madam Web movie. Next, we have Amazing Spider-Man #5 from 1999. First appearance of Maddie Franklin as the third Spider-Woman. Not actually her first appearance. She appears previously to this, but this is when we see her as Spider-Woman. Raw copies back then were 15 to 25, 9.8 going for 100. That's a $10 to $30 book raw, so pretty much the same range. You could call that steady. 9.8s, on the other hand, are 30 to 50. So yeah, there's raw copies going for almost as much as some of the low-end 9.8s. That's a dumpster fire on the 9.8s. Overall, we're going to call it down and I'll be back, but you can call it down and dumpster fire. You call it and I'll be back on the raw. Depends on what you want to say. But yeah, it's definitely down for sure here. Just not super dramatically on the raw copies, which surprises me a little bit. But hey, next we have Amazing Fantasy #1, the first appearance of Anya Corazon, Aranya. Back then, raw copies were 25 to 40, 9.8, 125 to 150. And now it's a $10 to $30 book, 9.8, 60 to 100. So it's a trap, really on both sides, both raw and 9.8 side on this one. Another book that's taken a step back. So yeah, this is all these characters that were going to be a big part of this movie. We're hitting this list, and yeah, all of them taking a big giant step backwards. And then 2 more to go. We got Marvel Superhero Secret Wars #7, first appearance of Julia Carpenter, our Sydney Sweeney in this Madame Web movie. Raw copies were 20 to 25 back then, 9.8, 225 to 250. Now it's a $10 to $25 book for a raw copy, 150 to 200 for 9.8. So another trap here, although this book has been basically forever on the raw side, like a $15 to $20 book. And that's basically where it's sitting now. So it wasn't a huge step back on the raw side, but yeah, 9.8s have definitely taken a significant step backwards again. And then last but not least, we have Amazing Spider-Man #210, first appearance of Madame Web. This was obviously the big book, the older book that has been carrying the most value all along. 75 to 150 for raw copies back then, 9.8, 900. When the movie was coming out, I think 9.8 actually jumped up to like 1,200 or something. There's some sales you can go back and see right around when the movie came out. Now it's a $20 to $100 book raw, 8 to 850 on a 9.8. So just kind of a down and I'll be back at this stage. Borderline getting trapped for sure on the raw copies, but yeah, it's 9.8s are doing pretty well still. We will see as we get further and further away how much more this book takes a step back. If this was a book I was wanting and I'd been waiting till after the movie came and gone, I would continue to wait. Probably this time next year, you're probably going to get about as good a deal on this book as you'll get. And then before it starts to finally recover from the disaster that was the movie. But that's just my guess. With that, I want to thank you guys for watching. This is going to be a short video compared to most weeks because we only had the 13 books. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and we will catch you next time. Later.